On the 21st of February 1966, Kwame Nkrumah departed Accra, Ghana en route to China. He was seen off at the airport by some leading government and party officials and some service chiefs. Harlley, Deku, Yakubu and others shook hands with him and expressed their goodwill. Little did he know that the men smiling and flattering him had treason and treachery in their minds. They had even planned to assassinate him on the D-Day. Fortunately, however, they later abandoned the idea of assassination. In this video, we will take a deep dive into the 1966 Ghana coup that destroys the hopes of Africa. We will explain step by step how the coup unfolded. Welcome to this edition on History Media, your in-depth history channel. Remember to like this video and subscribe to History Media. Don't forget to put on the bell notification as well. Thank you. After a week of maneuvers, the operation began in the early hours of Wednesday, 23rd February 1966, when the garrison at Kumasi, numbering about 600 men, was ordered to move southwest towards Accra. On their way, the convoy of some 35 vehicles was halted by the two coup leaders, Colonel Emmanuel Kwesi Kotoka, commander of the 2nd Infantry Brigade Group, and Major Akwasi Amankwa Afrifa of the 2nd Brigade. Kotoka, whose appointment was not confirmed yet, had only recently been put in charge of the Kumasi garrison. While Kotoka went to Accra to report progress to the Commissioner of Police, John Willie Kofi Harlley, and to find some soldiers better known than himself to head the revolt, Afrifa was left in command. In Accra, the chosen man was Major General Ankara. His choice was not really based on his abilities, but for the fact that it was not difficult to convince him. He was, however, one of the few officers who had held the rank of major in colonial days and had seen service in the World War as a quartermaster. But he had shown some bravery and routine abilities in the Congo. He also held the post of second in command in the armed forces after independence through seniority, not necessarily ability. In 1965, he was retired by Kwame Nkrumah. Undoubtedly, it was his lack of understanding of what was going on around him that made him a figurehead to those manipulating the coup. The mutineers accused the Nkrumah regime of planning to send troops to fight in Vietnam and Rhodesia. It was also alleged that Nkrumah had deserted Ghana, taking with him about £8 million. It was therefore their duty to assume power in Ghana to maintain control and restore law and order. Before this time, it was alleged that Russian planes were landing on the secret airstrip in northern Ghana. Further to this, that a secret tunnel had been made from Flagstaff House, the presidential residence, to Accra Airport, and for this, Russians had been arriving. For the coup plotters, the only way to save Ghana and to avoid being sent to fight in Vietnam, the troops were told, was to take Flagstaff House. Several days after the military coup, Kotoka and Afrifa appeared on Ghana TV, congratulating themselves on the success. However, one interesting remark stood out, quote, "And you know, we didn't find any Russians at all, not even one. Nor could we find any trace of that tunnel." The first objective of the military operation was to force the surrender of Major General Bauer, the Army Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Defense Staff, who was in command of the Ghana Army in the absence from the country of the Chief of Defense Staff, General Aferi. At the same time, Brigadier Hassan, head of military intelligence, Colonel Zanerigu, commander of the Presidential Guard Regiment, and Owosi Sekere, former head of the CID, now in charge of the special branch, were marked for arrest. But this part of the operation was badly bungled by the coup plotters. Hassan was arrested, but Zanerigu escaped through a window of his house and drove to Flagstaff House to warn the Presidential Guard Regiment. However, Bauer could not be intimidated either. The arrival of Kotoka and his men, numbering about 25, awoken him from sleep in the early hours of the morning of 24th of February 1966. But he courageously refused to either join the mutineers or surrender to them. Thereupon, he was shot dead by Kotoka at point-blank range in the presence of his wife and children. The 7 security officers who were stationed at Bawa's house were also murdered on the spot on Kotoka's order. Bawa was, however, given a military burial a few days later by the NLC, the National Liberation Council, in order to save their face. According to Nkrumah, the operation was characterized by cowardice, bloodshed, and criminal stupidity. By 6 a.m. on the 24th of February 1966, the Accra police, acting on orders given by Harlley, had rounded most of the ministers and other key political figures, and fighting had broke out between members of the Presidential Guard Regiment and Rebel Army Unit at Flagstaff House. Initially, there were about 30 members of the Guard Regiment at Flagstaff House when the alarm was raised. These were soon joined by others who managed to slip in through a back entrance to reinforce their comrades. Even though they were heavily outnumbered, they successfully held up the rebel detachment sent to seize the Ghana radio station a short distance from the presidential lodge. Only 8 of the 124 men that were detailed for this operation managed to get through and capture the radio station. At about 6 a.m., Kotoka arrived for national broadcast. He announced that the army and police had taken over the government of Ghana. But Nkrumah believed that the announcement was premature. This is because at about 7 a.m., resistance had actually increased at Flagstaff House as less than 100 defenders fought back fearlessly against some 600 rebel soldiers. By this time, a battalion in Accra under Overthrown had joined them, not knowing what the fighting was all about. First, the rebels were able to gain control of the airport, cable office, radio station, and all the roads leading to Accra. Kotoka had established a connection with the police at police headquarters, and from there, the order was given for the 2nd Battalion to go into action at Flagstaff House. But the Guard Regiment fought on. At this time, their position was increasingly becoming hopeless. The outside walls of Flagstaff House had been blasted open and the defenders had retreated behind the 2nd gate. Still, they refused to surrender. However, after the rebels threatened to blow up the family residence at Flagstaff House in which Nkrumah's family were taking refuge, the defenders gave in. What followed the fall of Flagstaff House on the 24th of February 1966 has been concealed from the public. But senseless killing of passerby, most of whom were caught in crossfire, were reported. Among those shot dead near Flagstaff House was an air hostess on her way to the airport. Interestingly though, the highly anticipated store of arms and the hidden Russian army was nowhere to be found. Government property and valuable historical documents and records were destroyed. The president's wife and children were not physically harmed, but were not permitted to take anything with them as they take refuge in the Egyptian embassy. His 80-year-old mother was maltreated by the Coup plotters and sent out of Flagstaff House. From Flagstaff House, the troop went to Kanda Estate, where many security officers have their quarters, and committed some more atrocities. Meanwhile, leading conspirators in the overthrow of Nkrumah were the top echelons of the Ghanaian police and the army. Among some of the key figures were J.W.K. Harlley, Commissioner of Police, B.A. Yakubu, Deputy Commissioner, A.K. Deku, Member of the Police, General J.A. Ankara, Lieutenant Colonel E.K. Kotoka, and Captain A.A. Afrifa. The decision to carry out the coup, known as Operation Culture, was made during the period from September 1965 to February 1965 by Harlley, Deku, Overthrown, and Kotoka. On the 15th of February, the police chief met to fix the death. Harlley was the most important single figure in the execution of the plan. It has been observed that he was in a position of trust and was an expert in the protection of the regime. he had at his disposal intimate knowledge of Nkrumah's security apparatus, and he had developed a skillful communication system between himself and the army. But the coup plotters had several motives. Primarily, the regular army considered the establishment of the presidential-owned guard regiment and the presidential detail department with its alternative security apparatus, all of which were run from the president's office, as a direct threat to their existence. The army also resented the reorganization of the police force following the January 1964 assassination attempt on Nkrumah and the dismissal of senior officers. In addition to this was the introduction of the Police Service Act in April 1965, which gave Nkrumah the sole authority to appoint and dismiss staff within the police force. To make matters worse, in December 1965, Nkrumah had ordered an inquiry into a diamond smuggling operation involving a European diamond dealer and a number of Ghanaians. Both Harlley and Deku were implicated in the scandal. Few days before the coup, rumors had spread that Nkrumah was planning to arrest his police chief for complicity in the scandal when he returns from Vietnam. Nkrumah saw the coup in Ghana as an alliance between neo-colonialist forces in the army and the police force in collusion with the imperialist interests. Nkrumah believed that the higher echelon of the police and the army were politically hostile to the new Ghana. In the light of this, he had considered it necessary to establish a new security service which would be independent of the police force. Nkrumah was aware that sacking Police Chief Majite in 1964 and the dismissal of Generals Otu and Accra in July 1965 created a lot of hostilities and hatred for him. Analyst argues that Nkrumah had made a number of fundamental mistakes. First, while in power, he failed to penetrate the army significantly. Second, he underestimated the alienation from the regime of his regular officers. And most importantly, he failed to develop the presidential-owned guard regiment rapidly enough to neutralize the army. Also, by the end of 1965, he had become far removed from political and economic realities in the country. He had grievously underestimated the alienation of the police and the army. He was also convinced of the necessity to visit Ho Chi Minh in China. These two issues profoundly beclouded his judgment and determined his course of action. Meanwhile, Nkrumah believed that Western imperialist interests were responsible for the economic squeeze imposed on Ghana in order to destroy his government. Among these measures were the artificial forcing down of the price of cocoa and the International Monetary Fund's refusal to grant credit guarantees in 1965. In summary though, it is clear that the cause of the coup lie in the balance of both internal and external factors. The critical external factor was the involvement of several Western powers in the coup. In 2001, newly released US government files revealed that the US, Britain and France were complicit in the overthrow. According to Paul Lee, formerly classified CIA, National Security Council (NSC) and State Department documents confirmed long-held suspicion of US involvement in the coup that overthrew Nkrumah's government on February 24, 1966. The memoranda revealed that the plans between the three Western countries went back to February 1964 when the State Department proposed to their British counterpart a plan to induce a chain reaction, eventually leading to Nkrumah's downfall. In the wake of the coup, the police and the army immediately set up the National Liberation Council (NLC) and quickly destroys the old CPP. Major General Accra, who had been forced into retirement by Nkrumah, was reinstated and promoted to Lieutenant General. An economic and political committee were set up to reverse the policies and economic direction of the Nkrumah-led government. Kwame Nkrumah and his entourage were accommodated at a large villa called Villa Saili in Guinea, and it was to become his residence for the remainder of his life. So, What is your thought on this? Let me know in the comment section. Click here for another interesting story of how Western powers killed Muammar Gaddafi and destroyed Libya. Remember to book the like button and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace.